You're listening to Book and Lounge, the podcast where we chat about books that reflect our diverse and rich experiences. Today we're discussing The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Deesha Philyaw. This collection of short stories serves as a window into the lives of women who are not only devout members of their congregations, but also complex, resilient individuals navigating the nuances of desire, identity, and spirituality. We explore how the church ladies navigate love, family, and sexuality, and how they balance their faith and their dreams. So whether you're a fan of the book or just curious about the exploration of faith and womanhood, join us for an enriching conversation that celebrates the strength and resilience of these remarkable characters. So let's hear what David, Annette, Yvonne, Katrina, and Taiwo had to say about the book. So I'll start by just going around and I guess saying what we thought about the collection as a whole. And then whilst doing so, we could just say what our favorite story was and why. I like the stories. I like the variety. And I also like that she tackles some issues that you don't necessarily normally get to talk about. I didn't think it was a great book as some people thought. And my favorite story was Peach Cobbler. I think because it was, of all the stories, it was the most developed. I mean, the other ones were okay, but I think some of them for me were just a bit too short. I like the detail in Peach Cobbler. I like the characters, and I like the issue that she was exploring in that book. Sorry, in that story. So that's why it was my favorite. Who would care to go next?
Okay, I can go next.
Sure.
Yeah. So. I liked this. I liked all the stories, bar one. I liked that the tone was funny at times, sad. I think it sort of pushed boundaries. I think there were lots of married boyfriends as well in their stories. So that I thought was interesting and surprising at the same time. My favorite story, it's hard to choose because I quite liked all of them. I think the only one that I'll talk about the one that I didn't like, which was Instructions for Married Christian Men. It just felt like a manual. I mean, it came across as someone who has a lot of power compared to other women in the stories. She seemed to have a lot of power, to be in charge, etc. But, she still is dating married men. So, yeah, that was, a bit strange. But that's the one that I didn't like the most.
Okay.
Yes. The rest, I think I loved each and every one of them, to be honest.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you, Yvonne. And who wants to go next? Katrina?
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know what to say about it, really, because none of the stories were bad. They were all really good stories, but none of them really grabbed me, and I don't know, I never really got into them. I just sort of read them. Peach Cobbler, that everybody talks about, I would have liked it if the woman had been a little bit nicer to her daughter, I thought. I found the idea of you make this thing and the man doesn't come round, and okay, that is disappointing, I get that. But why not give it to your daughter? Why not let somebody have a piece of it? I just felt like, I don't know, it just seemed nasty in an unnecessary way. So I preferred Snowfall. I found it was quite interesting about the two women, but I also, the main reason I liked it was I could really make a picture of the southern states from reading that. And yeah, I don't know, it just seemed very evocative to me, all the things that they were missing, or one of them was missing, I can't quite remember. So, but for the rest of it, I just kind of read them. Okay, maybe like Jackie, like you said, because they're not that long, maybe you don't get a chance to get really involved with the story. I don't know, but I didn't anyway. So That's what I think.
Thank you. And David?
For me, I really liked the story. How do how do you make love to a physicist? I kind of like that stream of consciousness and the thoughts within it. And I felt it explored kind of modern dating and ghosting and all the kind of issues people deal with. At the same time, they did explore God within it. So they looked at the notion of God being caring about the earth and caring for people. And this notion of the body being a home, I think sometimes people feel that their body's not a home a lot of the time. But it's kind of looking at authentic love, what that means, and how can you actually find healing through relationship. So I think maybe that's one of the stories that kind of came through for me, is that the more healing element of it. The other stories didn't necessarily have a kind of a closing that brought healing. They kind of stayed in some sort of conflict at times. So this seemed to have some resolve within it. And also there's a lot of humor about you're not a fan of Tyler Perry and that's okay, or you preferred Prince to Michael Jackson, and you preferred the first Amphiv. So a lot of these commonalities they had, they're all a bit silly things, but there was something really pleasurable about the way that she took you on a journey, from this, going to this conference, and then on a flight, and then the ghosting, and then they kind of coming together and the acceptance. So that was my favorite story.
Okay. Thank you, David. And Annette?
Yeah, there's a lot of emotions and throughout. I think I enjoyed the hypocrisy, but also found it really amusing in areas, and it's quite sad in other areas as well. I think my favorite was, I'll have two. I think Instructions for Married Christian Husbands. I think I actually did enjoy that. I like the fact that it read like a manual and just all her rules. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I got the sense of her empowerment, and I don't know if she felt that bothered that she was sleeping with Christian husbands. I don't know. I really liked it. I thought it was quite clever. And I also really enjoyed Snowfall as well. I thought it was very descriptive, and I kind of got a good sense of the relationship between the two women. And also, I can't remember if it was Rhonda, I'm not sure, and her mother as well, and how it looks like it might not really get where she would like it to be. Yeah, I really enjoyed that story too. Those are my two favorites. And probably my least might have been, actually, maybe I didn't like any that did not like much. Yeah, maybe the Peach Cobbler one, and maybe or Jahel's one as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Did any of you have IPA in your books?
Yes, I have.
You do?
I like that one too. I forgot about that one. It was very short, but yeah. It was good.
I like IPA because I think it's very reflective of modern day dating scene and the lengths people go to kind of present themselves in a certain way. So I quite like that. There is another story right at the end. Apparently, there's 10 stories altogether. The final one is called Must Love IPAs.
No.
I think you probably got the earlier edition.
Yeah, it ends on when Eddie Levert comes.
Yeah, so I think that's the early edition. But yeah, they added on another story, which I don't know. I find quite disturbing, because if you've already bought the book, you're kind of losing out if you don't get that. But yeah, I like that story.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because the idea you write down all the things you're looking for in the person you want to be attracted to, which isn't, I've never been in that scene, so I don't really know much about this. But I think actually you don't know who you're going to be attracted to until, she meets him and they are attracted. So it was irrelevant. The conditions, if you like, were irrelevant. And I found, yes, that's amusing.
Yeah. But I think that's, you say you've never been, I have been in those situations. So people kind of put down a whole list of things, desirables that they want. And then actually at the end of the day, does it really matter? I think it's more what the person looks like.
I've watched people doing it and not very successfully, is what I notice.
Yeah. And I guess it just becomes kind of like a checklist of things. And then it stops you from seeing the person for who they are. But anyway, we digress. Let's come back to the stories, the collection in general. So there's a lot of mothers and daughter relationships in the book, and I think that's one of the theme that runs through many of the stories in the collection. So how do you think this theme connects to the general theme of sex and religion?
I found the idea of the mothers and daughters and their relationships was more, if it had been called something like that, more relevant than the idea of church ladies, Because although obviously what the mothers have been teaching their daughters is influenced strongly by religious things, it struck me it was much more about your mother's teaching than about church teaching, for several of the stories anyway.
But isn't the church teaching, so isn't the mother's teaching influenced by what they've heard in church?
It is, but of course it is. But I don't know. I think it's a bit different to going to. I don't know. I think it's a slightly different way of, because I didn't really feel these women on the whole were church ladies. They might have been church children, but they didn't seem to me to be church ladies in their adult lives.
So the others, what did you think about the theme of religion and how it relates to mother and daughter relationships?
I think it related a bit to nourishment. You know how the nurturing and nourishment you expect from a mother. In the case of Peach Cobbler, she didn't get that, and I guess that's like the church in a way, that kind of metaphor for the church where you don't get what you need from them. It's not nurturing and for the people. But also, I think in terms of the church ladies, the title, it could also relate to being imprinted on a way of behaving. So even if they were church children, so they might have this kind of notion, oh, we have to behave a certain way, or this is the mores of how we're expected to behave. So that is always there, latent. It's always there, even if their lifestyles may appear to be different, but they've always got that internal judgment from the church running through their lives. So I thought that was interesting. And then the mother-daughter theme made me think a bit about, that notion of what the church offers to people. Does it nurture them? Is a mother also able to nurture? Because what kind of experiences has she had? So those are the kind of questions that made me think of. So I did think there was a mother-daughter theme running through, but it may relate to that kind of notion of nourishment, particularly with the Peach Cobbler. It's kind of a very visible example of being excluded from that nourishment.
Mm-hmm. And I think what I got from that is that the church teachings kind of restricted the way the women brought up their daughters, because they're sticklers for the rules from the church. It stopped them from seeing that actually there are nuances within life that the church teachings will not necessarily help you to deal with, because they just stuck to what the religion told them. They were not willing to move away from that and then actually see the impact of the various situations that the children found themselves in, and then help their daughters or children to live the kind of life they lead. For example, in Snowfall, the mother was very judgmental, and although she loved her daughter, she couldn't reconcile her daughter's relationship and the type of life that she wanted to live with the church teachings. And so I found that the church teachings perhaps were restrictive to the mothers and in some instances to the daughters.
The thing is, what I didn't understand with Peach Cobbler, because I thought people go to church to seek solace, to seek comfort, and I thought a mother would be extending that to their own daughter. But in Peach Cobbler, it's completely the opposite. The mother is very stern towards the daughter, and the softness is reserved for the pastor. What's his name? Pastor Neely.
Neely, yeah.
God. So I couldn't understand why she was so mean to her child, to the point where, as you say, he didn't come one day and she just chucked the peach cobbler in the bin for her child not to eat it. So that I just couldn't quite get that. I suppose in a way I can understand when Eddie Levert comes. The relationship between the mother and daughter is very sad. And I know the mother, she was quite sort of naughty and bad, and then she turned a corner. And that's when I think the church people helped her to the point where she was on board, and then they let her go because she really wasn't one of them. So there's a rejection there. But I thought the reason why she wasn't so warm to her daughter was more to do with colorism than to do with religion, because her daughter was the darkest out of her children. And that seemed to be the one thing that troubled her more. You know, like, shut your mouth, shut your black mouth, if you recall that statement.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I agree. Like, I think with the Eddie Levert story and with Peach Cobbler, it just happened to be that the church was part of the story, but that was it. I didn't necessarily fully see what the church had to do with the relationships. Like, there's definitely, it just seemed that there was a deeper meaning as to why the mother in Peach Cobbler was so horrible to her child. I didn't think it had anything to do with the church there. They went to church, but I couldn't see that, it's because of the church teachings as to why she was like that towards her daughter. I couldn't see that connection. And in the same with Eddie Levert, I just think it was down to her daughter being a lot darker as to why she treated her daughter that way. I think with those two stories in particular, I couldn't connect the dots like in a triangle or anything like that. It just seemed like, the church happens to be one part of the story, but actually they interact this way because of so and so. That's what I thought.
But if they're in church, and the church, part of church teachings are that you love unconditionally, then should they really not be loving their children and their daughters and nurturing them? So what I see is like a hypocrisy, right? There's the one, she goes to church, she becomes, in quotes, saved, and she adopts, the ways of the church. But if you're adopting the ways of the church, then surely you treat your child like you love your child and you treat your child correctly.
Well, I think maybe that came through in Jael, Snowfall, and Eula, maybe, because that is, women were struggling to love other women because it was forbidden by the church and by their families. So I can sort of see the connection.
Yeah, because they were trying to know. Yeah.
Yes, but those were all sort of same-sex relationship, which obviously the church has for many generations frowned upon.
Mm-hmm.
The point about that, though, I think, is that they talk about church ladies, we talk about what we think Christian churches are like, but these are the same rules, really, that most religions have. And most people of a certain generation, whether they're religious or not religious, have had to sort of come round to the idea of same-sex relationships, if they've come round. And some of that generation won't have come round to the idea, even irrespective of whether they go to church. I think the whole thing seems to me more about social pressure than specifically about the consciousness of church teachings, except probably maybe in the first story, Eula. Is it Eula? She seems to be busy trying to get the Christian marriage and ignoring perhaps the fact that she's at least bisexual.
You don't think in Jael, Jael, because that is literally, you can hear the great-grandmother struggle when she has access to the great-granddaughter's diaries. Yeah, and obviously she has these obsessions with the preacher's wife, and the granny thinks it's ungodly to have such.
I think you're right.
I think that's that one as well. Yeah, there is a link.
I agree with you. But like with Snowfall, I don't know, because I wasn't that taken with any of the stories that I sort of went back and re-looked at them. So I might be forgetting things, but I feel like it's these mothers, they just feel embarrassed because their daughters aren't doing what they think, their society wants daughters to do. And I don't feel like they're worrying about, I don't know. I don't feel that the church, it's the social aspect of the church that's affecting them, perhaps, rather than God and what God approves of in our lives.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's precisely why it's quite difficult, because the stories are quite short. So you don't actually get the perspective of the mother, like in Peach Cobbler, how did she get to be in that situation? We don't know. Snowfall is the same way. I mean, we know the pain of separation, but we don't know why the mothers are behaving the way they are. Is it the church? Is it because they're so short, it becomes challenging to fully understand?
Yeah, I wonder, does the church create a kind of duality? You know, this notion of the hypocrisy. You know, you have this presentationalism where you have to present in a certain way. So behind the mothers as well, there's a kind of a hidden life that they have to hide. So all that kind of hiding everything then creates a kind of a barrier for people to be open and honest about themselves. And that kind of comes through as a theme, you know, the notion of dual lives and duality and things that are happening that are not acceptable. And that's probably coming from church teachings or social teachings, but I think that the church kind of gives a rubber stamping to that. Don't talk about these things. These are forbidden. You know, there's a kind of, particularly with same-sex relationships, you know, there's a kind of, this is not to be discussed historically, you know, so there's that kind of overriding feeling. And then, yeah, these mothers are struggling as well with that. You know, they're trying to also have their own identities. They have their desires and they're trying to be women, and then they're trying to be mothers and all these things to so many people. Then, yeah, so I feel that could be where the church kind of, it comes in, you know, that notion of trying to dictate how people live their life and also imprinting on the way that they live their lives.
Given the title, I just thought it was implied that these women were in church and that their beliefs and values were influenced by church teachings. And so that's why they were behaving towards their daughters in the way that they were. Like the collection centers mainly around Black women's relationships, and all of the characters are Black. And I did think, do other people of other ethnicities, women of other ethnicities who are in church, do they have similar experiences?
I'm sure if they're in the Catholic Church, they'll have similar experiences, irrespective of where you come from in the world. Because the teaching is strict, isn't it? Or, you know, what the standards are very clear. And then if you decide to go against them, you have to deal with your feelings of that. And I don't think that makes any difference. Well, I'm sure how it manifests and things might make a difference. Like these ladies, like Peach Cobbler, I felt poverty had something to, or at least not being very rich, if not absolute poverty, had a lot to do with why she remained tied in with this pastor. But, you know, struggling with your conscience, I don't see that that's belongs to any particular ethnicity.
I'll just now go on to, I guess, each of these stories. The first one is Eula. And we only get Corrector's perspective. What do you think Eula gets out of the relationship? And if the story was told from Eula's perspective, do you think it would differ?
I just feel like she would downplay everything. Like, I don't know, she might not even, the hotel would have been booked. Like it would have been sparkling grape juice. It wouldn't have been like champagne. Everything would have just been very PG. I think because she doesn't believe I don't know. She's in denial. So I think everything that she would relate back to us would not read the same. She's in denial. So I just don't think the story would be the same at all. I don't think she believes what she's doing is what she's doing. I can't explain it. I don't know. I just don't think it would be the same at all. It wouldn't. It would just be
I was just saying, I think you're right, because I think Caroletta seems to know exactly who she is. She seems more assured. And I think Eula is not acknowledging that she's in a long-standing relationship. Although they meet once a year, but they've been meeting every single year for the last at least 10 years, because they start in their 30s and they're now in their 40s. So I think it's all a bit down low for Eula. But I think she's struggling as well. I think it's because she's the one who struggles the most with trying to be mainstream, trying to have a heterosexual relationship. And she's trying really hard. So I feel for her in many ways, because I think it ends where Caroletta is saying, well, maybe next year we can actually go out and and then Eula changes the subject fairly quickly because she can't accept who she is.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think she gets out of the relationship? Because she's struggling a lot with who she is. So why does she continue to go, and what does she get out of it? Oh, well, other than the friendship, because they have been friends since school.
Well, it's more than friends.
Yeah.
You know, the way it's been described.
Friends don't friends do that.
I do a lot less hand-holding, and I think that's what she gets out of the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, intimacy, for sure, she gets out of it, even though she still thinks she's a virgin, but intimacy, that was so funny. Intimacy, I suppose, and I guess her friend gets her. Whatever excuses she's making as to why none of these men seem to be the right person for her, clearly her friend is. So I guess her friend gets her and understands her. So there's that aspect. It's true. The friendship and the intimacy, for sure. Yeah, I think those are the main two I can think of. They're in a relationship, but yeah, definitely are.
Except she doesn't believe that they're in a relationship. Okay, and then we move on to Not Daniel. The narrator shares how she and Not Daniel feel free to cry when they're together in the parking lot late at night. What is it that you think brings these total strangers together? Why do they choose to be vulnerable and intimate with one another, although they are total strangers?
You see, that's what I couldn't understand. How did it start? I mean, there's some way it says that I looked at him a lot longer than I should have. Because I thought he was Daniel. But I mean, it's very quick. The pace is like, I mean, I cannot imagine. I found it quite shocking. I cannot imagine myself in a situation where I'm in hospital and I sort of just look at someone a little bit longer and then, you know.
You're in the back of the car.
Strangers in the same situation. And it sort of gets to that stage very quickly. I mean, I thought it was a little bit liberating, but I was very surprised by the story.
Katrina, you want to say something?
Well, I'm thinking about it. I mean, I'm supposing they're both vulnerable because they're both going through something very difficult that they've got in common. And I suppose that might lead you into intimacy. And if he was, we don't know much about either of them, if he was the sort of man who was quite happy to have a little relationship on the side, giving him that extra long look by accident could be just that, you know, give him that excuse to progress. But we don't really know enough about them, do we?
No.
It's just I shared with her feeling that wouldn't it be awful if, you know, and the mother died or something while they're entangled in the back of the car. That would upset me if it happened to me. But it didn't seem to worry him. So maybe that's the difference between men and women, but I don't think so. It's just they're my story.
And what do you think the story reveals about grief? And does it challenge what you believe about grief in any way?
I don't think so. I think people respond to grief in lots of different ways, and it can make you very, I don't know, I suppose do something you might not normally do. You know, I don't think it's contradictory at all.
Okay. So for me, I think I guess it made me think exactly as you just said. People deal with grief in different ways. And I think for both of them, because if all you're doing is continuously going to hospital to see someone who's dying, it kind of gets monotonous and you kind of want an escape. And I saw it as a way for both of them just to escape, just to be different people, just momentarily, if they could. And I saw it as a way for them to deal with the grief and the pending loss of their parents. And I think, I don't think we grieve in any way. I don't think there really is a prescribed way for grief. I think everybody kind of deals with it differently.
I wondered about the title, Not Daniel. I thought it was quite powerful, wasn't it? Because I got the sense she's obviously thinking about someone else, someone she likes. I didn't know who the Daniel McCarthy or Daniel McMurray is, so I thought that was wild. Just thinking she's thinking about someone else potentially. I just thought that was quite powerful. I don't know how anybody else thought about that.
Yeah, I actually quite like the title, Not Daniel, not Daniel, because it does get you thinking, who is Daniel? I mean, I think it was Daniel someone in her past. And did she actually ever ask this guy what his name is? The Not Daniel, right? Oh, does she even know what his name is? Or is it just like, because it's such a brief relationship, a brief encounter that they just want to keep it, on the surface. They don't want to get to know each other any more than they have. So that's why it's not Daniel. It's just a very physical encounter. But I did like the title, Not Daniel. In the next story, I think it's the next one, where the dear sister, where the siblings, and actually nobody mentioned that as their favorite. I quite like that one. Where the sisters write to their half sibling, the one that they haven't met, telling them about their philandering father, and the kind of relationships that they have with each other. And I was just sitting here wondering, if I received that letter, what would I think? How would I respond? And then I just sort of, I'll get your views. And what if you received that letter, what would you do? How would you respond? Would you respond?
I think I would respond. Obviously I don't know what her life is like now, but I would like to think I would respond. I mean, it sounds messy, but they still sound like a family, and they're still quite close knit. And again, I don't know what her situation is, but if she doesn't have any other siblings, for example, I would somehow still feel quite drawn to them, because I'd want to be part of that and know more about my father and my extended family. And she sounds warm and welcoming, and so I would respond. I would want to just get to know them as much as I could. So it would have put me off, really, I think.
No, I would want to get to know them. They sound interesting.
And she might be pregnant. She could be the one that's pregnant. So, for anything, I'd be like, yeah, grandma's right. So.
Yes, I like the bit about grandma and her premonitions about pregnancy.
Is it when she dreams about fish?
Yeah.
Yes, and then someone's pregnant. I don't know why.
I don't know. I think
I don't know. I think it depends on how I've been raised. If I've been raised and I have enough siblings or half siblings in this case, and my life is okay, thank you very much, I may take my time to respond, I think.
I don't know. I think I would be too curious. I think I would definitely respond. I don't think I agree with you, Annette, that I would want to find out about my father, because it sounds quite terrible as a father.
Yeah, but I think I still want to know, even if he was terrible. I don't know. I thought I'd still be like, oh, okay, this was him. Okay, fine. But it depends what I've been told. That's the thing. Like, I don't know.
If you received what is in the letter, I don't know. I don't think if I read what's in the letter, I would think it's quite a terrible man, and I would not want to be particularly interested in.
But that other sister still adores him, which was still quite.
Yeah, but she's a church sister, isn't she?
Yeah, you have to just listen to your mother and father. I forgot.
So yeah, I don't know, but yes, I would definitely want to get to know the sisters. I like the relationship between them. I like the fact that although they're very different, raised by different mothers, they're still very close. And although they disagree on a lot of things, they still, stick up for each other when the other one is in trouble. I mean, they can argue amongst each other, but they don't allow anybody else to criticize them or even do anything wrong to them. So they always stick out for each other. And I like that. I like that about them.
I think that's the bit I liked the most about the story, the fact that they're half siblings, but they've got such a strong bond. Because sometimes full siblings don't have that bond. So the fact that they've been raised by different moms and warring mums, because I think two of the moms were friends and then the friendship ended because, So the fact that all that happened and they're half siblings and they've got such a strong bond and liking for each other. I half thought it must be to do with the grandmother, because they all met at the grandmother's house and maybe she was very nurturing.
Yeah, I thought exactly the same. It was the grandmother that really brought them together, and also the grandmother's teachings, which I guess, given what we've said about the church and relationships between mothers and daughters and the church and women who go to church, in this story is quite different, because she's managed to bring them together. She's managed to teach them to love each other, right? Which is quite the opposite of the grandmothers in the other stories. So I like the contrast between this one and then the mothers and grandmothers in the others.
Yeah.
Moving on, and the next story, Peach Cobbler. So Olivia's mother told God, in inverted commas, that she didn't want Olivia growing up expecting life to be sweet. So that's one of the lessons that she was trying to instill in Olivia, that life is not easy and that being who she is, she's going to have life quite tough. At least that's what she was trying to teach her. And what other lessons do you think that she teaches her in treating her the way that she does?
Nothing good.
Yeah, she's just so mean. I can't seem to think of what you are trying to teach, because
but from being mean to her, what other lessons do you think that Olivia draws from how she's being treated?
Sort of like, at first I thought kind of like shouldn't we rely on other people, if that makes sense. But then she did say that, well, who do you think's been funding our life this whole time? So I don't know. Partly you need to fend for yourself, but also she's not necessarily displaying that if the pastor was the one that was giving her money. I don't know. But I did get the kind of the indication of you kind of going to have to get you're going to have to sort of fend for yourself throughout life and not rely on anyone. But she wasn't also doing that. So,
and I agree with you. I think
even when she sends her to tutor the young man, the mom doesn't ask about, is he getting it? What is she like? She's asking about the pastor's wife. I don't know. For me, she's really petty. It's really petty, and there's not much to learn from the mom. And I think the daughter stays because she has nowhere else to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
she definitely thinks her mom, she did not want to keep that secret, and she felt really bad that she had to go and teach the young man, and obviously found that the pastor's wife was actually quite a lovely lady. Yeah, I just can't think of anything that the mother is teaching her that is useful and positive.
But even implicitly, you don't think that there are things that she's teaching? Okay, and I tell you why I say that. So I think Olivia is the woman in instructions for married Christian husbands.
Yeah, and if
is
that
it?
Yeah, that was my reaction.
Because of the beach Oh, I see.
I didn't get that when I read it the first time, but when we talked about it, the other one, I see that. And if you assume that, you get the impression she's been taught not to get not to put any faith in anybody, really, just not to develop a relationship. Because all those instructions are, okay, they're for the man, but they're really for her as well, that we're having sex, we might go to some nice places, but we're not developing any relationship between the two of us. And we don't know what was going on with the mother and this guy. Obviously, he was the pastor. Obviously, he was giving some money. but whether they, I can't remember. Did they laugh? Could she hear them laughing in the bedroom? I think that
Could hear a lot of banging.
I know, yes, obviously, but where did I get that from? I might have forgotten that.
No, I think
you got it from the story.
It was in that. So, well, that suggests that there was some sort of rapport between them. And this woman goes to all the effort of making this peach cobbler every week and then being so disappointed and upset that she has to take it out on her daughter and chuck the whole thing away when he doesn't turn up. It sounds as if, on her side at least, she would have liked a lot more. And the daughter doesn't want to get into that, does she? She doesn't want, if the two stories are connected as they seem to be.
And actually, if the two stories are connected, now that explains why I thought Instructions for Married Christian Men was the worst one and the one I did not connect with at any level, because it's cold, calculating. She seems to be powerful because she's giving out these instructions, but she's sleeping with other people's husbands. So I did not relate it at all. Just like I don't relate to the mother in Peach Cobbler, and she's not taught her daughter any softness or niceness that's it.
Yeah, I suppose she's taught her daughter all these kind of maladjusted coping mechanisms, how to cope, to get through, and see relationships as this kind of transaction. There's a kind of a clinical dealing with people, and maybe that kind of those kind of coping mechanisms are what she's taught to her daughter, just how to get through and how to relate to people in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that, but one of the other things that she's probably picked up, because she doesn't want these men to fall in love with her in the instructions, is basically she's seen how her mother has fallen for God. She doesn't want to find herself in the same situation. She keeps a distance.
Yeah.
Right? She will get into relationships as long as she doesn't have to form any deep connections with the people that she's getting into relationships with them. And I think for me, that's part of what she's taught her daughter. She didn't have any intimate connection with her daughter, the mother. And so she hasn't learned how to develop intimate connections. But at the same time, she's seen how her mother for all these years has been treated by this guy. And she doesn't want to be in the same situation where she's relying on this. Her happiness depends on this guy. So she's built herself this world where she feels she's in control, and she controls everything that happens. And she's convinced herself that she's happy. I mean, as to whether or not she's happy, I guess we can't say. But she's convinced herself that she's happy.
I mean, people will talk about her in the instructions for Christian husbands or whatever it is, as if she's powerful and all this. But she just comes across to me as somebody who's very scared of anything going wrong and losing control, not as someone who's powerful. Although obviously she's trying to be powerful in the sense of controlling the relationships. To me, that's not actually very powerful. That's just very scared behavior. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, she's seen her mother's relationship be very unsatisfactory, really. She then comes off badly with the boy she's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
That's a slap in the face, and she's not going to have any of that happen to her again. But in any case, why is she always? Are there no unmarried men anywhere available? There must be one or two somewhere.
But she goes specifically for married men because I guess it's the thrill. She does describe why she goes for married men, because they're unattainable, and the part of the fun for her is trying to get them to fall in love with her, or to get them to sleep with her. It's a thrill for her.
So I was going to say also, I think it's just specifically the Christian married men, or just married men in general, because I think then she specifically also picks Christian married men because she can see the hypocrisy. Look what happened to my mother. sort of look what happened with me with the pastor's son and all. I think that there's a lot of bitterness there as well, like her mum, and a lot of anger. So I think she specifically targets them because of part of their impact into her childhood as well, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Sort of punishing them.
Yeah.
And David, you were saying?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think it's just going for somebody who's emotionally unavailable because their mother was unavailable. So it's very familiar, isn't it? It's that pattern, trying to seek nurturing from someone who's not available. So that's kind of a repetitive trauma, isn't it? You know, kind of keep repeating that. So, and yeah, I think there was discussions about whether you can be happy that way, but do you need some healthy level of dependency on others to be happy? Is that what you might want, to have some reliable people to depend on to be happy? Or can you love yourself? And it's a tricky one, isn't it? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And why when she was still living with her mother, why do you think she chooses not to tell Miss Marilyn about her mother and Pastor Neely?
I thought she liked her. That's what I thought. I thought she respected her, and I just thought she really, really liked her. She was more of a mother to her than her own mum, and it would hurt her. I think she could clearly see it would hurt. Whether she knew already, it doesn't matter. Well, it does, but it doesn't matter. She just knew that it would hurt her, and I don't think she wanted to cause that any trouble in that way. That's what I think, anyway.
But I don't even think she wanted to cause any trouble for her mother, because I think she yearned for her mother's love. She never got it, but I think she yearned for it. And I think that's why she looked at that peach cobbler and just wished she was it, because her mom did it with such love and care. So I think there was some loyalty to her mother as well.
Okay.
But she would know not to say.
And she knew she had nowhere to go. I think that's another thing. I think she did. Like, her mum would just kick her out, and there was nowhere for her to. I thought she would go on to college as well, though. That's I thought. The fact that she was tutoring him, I don't know. For some reason, I thought that. I don't know if she did or not. She might have, but I thought.
I think based on the fact of the instructions to the married Christian husbands, I think she probably did go to college.
Okay.
Yeah, because she comes across as quite a well-to-do woman who has her own place, knows what she wants, basically.
I thought that might have changed her a bit, but
that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, thinking the same, that if she did go to college and she had another life, that might have informed her that life can be different. Just because your mother had this dependency on a pastor doesn't mean that you. I thought it would be freeing, if you go to college and you have other different points. It might soften you up a little bit.
Too late.
But then do you not think that she is free, as in she's in control of her life and, who she sees and when she sees them? Would you not consider that to be free?
Yeah, but it's still linked to what happened during her childhood. I think there's still that connection. I'm not saying she's not free, but there is sort of a reason as to why she is this sort of free.
No, the way she's written, she's not free. She's in pain. She does it. She's in pain. The way it's written, this is why I hated that particular story. There's no warmth. It's just cold, and she needs help.
I totally agree with you, Yvonne. I think, yes, you can live a happy life without being dependent on somebody else, but that doesn't mean that it's a happy life to sort of kind of take it out on. It's almost like she's taking out her issues on these men, and like you say, sort of enticing them and rejecting them and controlling them and getting rid of them if she starts to get feelings. It doesn't sound like somebody who's very, very well adjusted to me.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like hard work.
With some nice bits.
Well, what do you think the instructions reveal about the men that she's involved with then? Did you ever think about these men as you were reading the instructions?
It sounds like the pastor a bit. I don't know. No, they just sounded like men. I didn't know. I didn't really.
You just say that they just sounded like me. I don't know. I guess for me, I guess they kind of seem like they're men who are quite unhappy. For them to receive a list of instructions like this, and then also still, well, I guess it's both things. I guess you could be unhappy, but then again, I guess it could be the thrill as well for the men. Anyhow,
maybe they think that they'll be the one that, you know, she does become dependent on, and, you know, that will feed their egos perhaps. Or maybe they are unhappy in their marriages and they're looking for something outside of the marriage. But who knows? We don't know, do we?
No. But I did have a thought about them when I was pondering this discussion today. Now I'll move on to one that many people loved, and I don't know, I'm not sure. I didn't love this story as much as everybody else did, and that's How to Love a Physicist, or How to Make Love to a Physicist. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's great about this, but quite a few people liked it.
It was a romance.
Because
it was a romance. Yeah.
Was it?
With a happy ending.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Was it?
What's wrong with you? Don't you watch romantic comedies?
But you know, not really.
Trying to behave like an African.
Okay, fine. I'll stick to my Africanness. So coming back to, I think I know why I didn't gel, or it didn't affect me as much as, I guess, other people. Eric seems too nice. I think that's why. Anyway, before I come on to my reasons, why do you think Eric responded to Lyra's message after she ghosted him for quite a while?
Because he liked her.
Yeah. Because he likes her. I think sometimes life can be that simple. I think most relationships tend not to be straightforward, but there are some relationships where they like each other, and he understands her, and he will wait until she's ready, because obviously we know he might not know that, you know, she has some therapy and she's dealing with her issues about her own body. There's some discomfort that she's, you know, but he will wait because he likes her. Mm-hmm. I think there is, and the end, you know, there's no complication. It's quite nice because it's normal.
He's not a typical guy.
What about typical though? I mean, are you talking about your own personal experience, or you're just trying to broad brush strokes all men?
Typical guy type. I'm talking about.
No. I don't accept it. David, support me here.
He's not going to stick around, right, and wait to be ghosted and then continue writing to you.
No, it was only twice.
It's all quite understandable. This guy
twice. It was not. He continued. Well, he was ghosted twice, yes, right. But throughout that, he continued the communication. Even when she didn't respond, he would continuously send messages about what he was doing, about his research, all of that. In fact, it was one of them that prompted her to then get in touch with him again.
But I think you're overlooking two things. One, the first connection was very, very strong for both of them. And so that formed, in my mind, that formed a very solid foundation, a promise of, this is not a woman that I'm just going to kind of discard. So fine, there were issues the first time. I don't think the first time that she actually ghosted him. I think that there was that connection, but for whatever reason, she cut off. And he continued to not necessarily pursue, but he continued to inform, which I felt came from a position of confidence in who he was and the fact that he saw potential in her. Then the first time that she ghosted him was when she'd responded after kind of cutting him off, as it were, and then she disappeared. That's when I felt that she had ghosted him, and that's when he said, "Look, if we're going to do this, we need to communicate, we need to be open." So he then acknowledged the fact that he'd felt hurt by what had happened, but nevertheless, the second point was the fact that he said he would wait. He felt, that there was this potential in her, wasn't going to let the opportunity pass him by. And it was just the 2 occasions.
I completely agree with everything that you said. Yeah, I think she technically had no obligation to respond to him the first time. Like, they exchanged numbers, but she didn't have to respond because they never started really talking via text from that point, if that makes sense. So she only really ghosted him once when she did respond, then she didn't respond after that. But when he started messaging her initially, she didn't have to respond. She just gave her number and that could have been it. So yeah, I agree. He saw potential, was very confident in himself, and yeah.
Well, I think he's a guy, he's a physicist. I think he's got a very high-powered job, doesn't have much time on his hands anyway, therefore isn't, we hope, running, because I did wonder if he got some other woman tucked away, so it didn't matter. More local
Why
to him,
people
so
have
it
to
didn't
just
matter.
bring their own issues into this story?
No. I'm more for you what you said, Taiwo. I think he's a busy guy, doesn't do a dating scene perhaps because he's got a lot of stuff on, and he saw her as, so he's giving her that second chance after the ghosting business, which was a bit much, really, wasn't it?
But I would agree with Jackie that there are concerns. If someone ghosts you and you continue to text them, it's not very healthy, is it? So I'm overlooking that and just kind of enjoying the romance of it, the rom-com, because it's the only kind of healing one, I think, in there. But I think, you would wonder if at someone's self-respect, if they keep texting someone who doesn't, you could almost say it's a bit unpleasant to do that if someone's giving you a sign that they don't want to. But yeah,
I think you two are looking at it with a 21st century lens, like today's world, that, if I don't get a text back or whatnot, then, that's it, move on to the next one. But, the normal old-fashioned is, people go away, they're floating in and out. This is a beautiful romance. And what I loved was just the last sentence. How do you make love to your physicist? With your whole self quivering, lush and unafraid.
You guys are too romantic, I think. But coming back to the romance thing, right? So,
sorry, Jackie. Actually, funny enough, as I was reading through this, I was actually getting a little anxious. I was like, "Are they going to meet? Are they going to meet? Is it actually going to happen? Is it going to work?" And of course, they meet, and I'm like, relief.
Lyra does quite roomy in the story, and the quote is, "Lovers don't finally meet somewhere; they're in each other all along." Now, given as you guys are the romantics in the room, do you agree? Do you agree with that?
You could read it like that, or you could read it like, that when you meet someone and you find that sort of kindredness in each other, that this is, you're bringing out stuff from yourself, which is stuff, I don't know, I can't express myself properly on this, but, that sort of spiritual awareness of each other that maybe you could have with somebody else, but you find it in that particular person. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Anyway.
I didn't understand the last bit though. I didn't understand they're in each other. But I thought in terms of, a person who is a romantic or who is a lover will probably have that kind of approach to life from the get-go. So it's already in them. The potential is already there. It just needs to be developed. But in terms of the two of these particular individuals, I didn't quite get the last bit about, they're in each other. I didn't quite understand that. But it did make me Google Rumi. And then I started thinking, okay, I need to try and explore who is this Rumi person and all the rest of it.
Oh, read Rumi. It's very lovely poetry.
Okay, I'll move on in the interest of time. Sorry, Taiwo, you do have something to say.
What's wrong with you? I just had to say, because Yvonne...
You're late now.
Okay, first of all, I'm sorry I'm late. But this is an important book. I had to contribute. Yvonne, you said How to Make Love to a Physicist ended on, a great note. And I felt, okay, fine, yes, but Instructions for married Christian husbands was even better. I mean, the way it ended was a killer, and I have to read it. Where she ends, she says, shower or don't, gather your things, leave nothing behind, slide your ring back onto your finger, tread until you are back on dry land. I thought that was just a killer final way of concluding such a great story. Please agree with me. Please, all of you, agree with me.
This is the story I despise the most.
Really?
Yes. Instructions for married Christian men. Because it's a manual. Because it's cold. It's just instructions. Yes, nothing more to say.
Look, I read it as a fiction. I know that in reality, there's morality in the world and all the rest of it. But reading it purely as a piece of fiction, putting aside all morality and all the rest of it and religiosity, I just felt it was a killer short story.
Mm-hmm. I'll move on just in the interest of time. So we're moving on to Jael. And now Granny shares her fears for Jael throughout the story. And I didn't get... I mean, I could understand Jael's struggles, but I didn't get what her fears were. And do you think that these were articulated in the story? And if so, what do you think her fears are?
I think the great grandmother's fears is basically that Jael is ungodly.
Uh-huh. But what's Jael's fears?
In summary, and she's ungodly because of her obsession with the pastor's wife.
Uh-huh.
And natural desires.
Yeah, yes. And that's why she's struggling whether to take her to church where she sees sweet Sadie or she's struggling as what do I do with this child? Which I found really interesting because, and actually this story actually really worried me the most because I said, okay, this child is 14 and her friend is 15 and they're spending all their time with a 35-year-old guy.
Mm.
And the great-grandmother is worried about sweet Sadie.
Mm-hmm.
There lies a contradiction for me. I was like, you've got your children are hanging out with an almost 40-year-old guy, and your concern is about sweet Sadie.
But isn't that part of the hypocrisy that lies in the church? Because I mean, you'd think that she should be more concerned about the children being groomed by a 35-year-old rather than she's a teenager. Teenagers go through all sorts of things. It could be that it's a phase that she's going through that may come to pass. And even if it doesn't come to pass, we're in 2021 or 2023 even, right? You'd think that she'll accept her daughter or her granddaughter for who she's. I see Taiwo and Annette shaking their heads.
I feel like there's many people who they'd rather their child was a murderer than be gay. So I don't think they care about this 45-year-old, 35-year-old man hanging out with these small kids. It's the fact that my granddaughter is attracted to another woman. That's the big issue. Not that there's a pedophile in the area. She doesn't care. That's not the issue at all. Yeah.
Taiwo?
It's the one sin, isn't it, in the Christian church or in the black church? It's the one sin that cannot be washed away by the blood of Jesus. Homosexuality. Yeah, it's the one.
Everything else can be washed away with the blood of Jesus, but homosexuality can't. Why is it homosexuality?
I don't know. The church has a big issue with human sexuality, and always has.
But why is the church so obsessed with sex?
Maybe because it's forbidden. Homosexuality is doubly forbidden. I mean, outside of wedlock, isn't it? It's forbidden.
And if I murdered someone, if I repent that and I did my time in jail, I'm sorry I killed them, God will forgive me. It's sort of like that's it. But I don't know, if you're gay, I'm not going to be gay. So God, how can nothing's going to be right loggerhead. So what am I repenting for? Because I can't change. So that's it. So yeah,
you're condemned.
I'm condemned forever. Yeah. But if I was a serial killer, it's absolutely fine. Basically. Because I've said sorry.
But also, I wonder where the root of this came from, because I know that in many African societies, or at least I know about in Nigeria, homosexuality or being gay, or even being, there's one in between, isn't there? You're not male, you're not female. There's something else. I can't remember what it's called.
Intersex.
Was quite normal, quite accepted. And I read about it in Indian society, where there were certain kind of like a caste of people that would switch gender or whatever it was, and they're part of the community, not necessarily respected, but an accepted part of the community. So I don't know whether it's when, the white man brought his white blonde Jesus, blue-eyed Jesus to Africa, when the whole idea of homosexuality being this great sin. I don't know whether that's where it came from. I really don't know, but it's there.
Yeah. Let me leave that for now.
Be mindful of the fact that this is Jael's great grandmother. So she's probably in her 70s or 80s or 90s. I mean, she's buried her daughter and her granddaughter, and now she's with a great granddaughter. So you can imagine, she's grown up probably in the church, and it's those church teachings that she holds dearly. And Jael is obviously going about it in a completely different way. So I think it's also generational.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite funny that it's her great-granddaughter, and without remembering all the exact details, it doesn't seem as if all that church teaching did a lot for the daughter and the granddaughter, but we're still stuck on the same course. We're still sticking to this route, which seems to lead to disaster. And we're, like you say, we're not worried that she's cavorting, she's spending time with this older man, even though it seems to be her friend, really, isn't it, who's spending the time. It is rather bizarre. And is that realistic? I mean, I know it's that generation and the church and everything, but is it really realistic that you've got this character who is more worried about something written in the great-granddaughter's diary, than in the fact that she's in unsuitable company?
Probably. I mean, if they're obsessed with religion and the church and what others will think, because there's a lot of pressure from society generally on church-going people. So I think it's keeping up appearances, so to speak. She doesn't want to be associated with anything that's to do with, I guess, homosexuality. Now, if she came to you for advice regarding what Jael did to Jamie, what would you say to her?
Obviously, she's suspicious, but does she actually know, or is it just a concern? Because it's not you said you weren't sure about the explosion from the story. I thought it was clear it was Jael who'd set the gas so that it exploded, but it was some hours later. So is she sure that's what her great granddaughter's done?
Well, this is it. I think she does know, because she does.
She fears. She fears, but does she know?
Is it beyond reasonable doubt?
It doesn't seem any more, the fact that she's sitting in church and she's looking at the pastor's wife. Isn't it itself a sin? Even if you've written stuff in your diary, that in itself isn't a sin, I don't think. Although I know you sin in your head.
You're kind of having the thoughts, aren't you? That's just thinking about it is a sin, isn't it?
Yes, but
sin of transgression.
Well,
a mental sin.
Yeah. So yeah, if let's assume that she
murdering
knew
someone, is it? You can think about murdering somebody, but you don't. If you don't do it, it's not really quite in the same league in terms of sin. So I don't know. I just think that she might pretend she doesn't know.
Well, but let's assume that she knows.
Okay.
And she came to you, I don't know, told you what she thinks she knows. How would you advise her? What would you say to her? Well, I would definitely recommend therapy for Jael. Well, actually, even for both of them.
Prayer, I think. I think it should be prayers are the best you could do. You won't get therapy.
Well, like an exorcism.
Yeah, maybe, or at least, going back to my tradition, several Hail Marys, definitely. A few decades of the rosary for that.
But do you not think that the grandmother prays enough? And has that helped?
Well, she doesn't seem to be very conscious of that, does she? That's my point about, she's had one daughter or granddaughter killed by the boyfriend. I can't remember what happened to the other ones. So prayers don't seem to be doing a lot.
But you'd recommend prayer anyway?
No, I wouldn't. But I think it's the only thing the grandmother would accept. Maybe exorcism, though.
Okay.
I have an issue, though, with the great-grandmother. I mean, because the first time she read the diary, JL's diary, she found it by mistake. So, okay, I can understand, fine, curiosity. But then she continued to read the diary, and I just felt that was really problematic for me. I mean, that is putting to one side the paedophile, grooming the two girls. I mean, why would she keep on going back? Fine, she's curious, but these are private thoughts. And it doesn't mean that the person is necessarily going to act on them. And if you flip the script, you think about, if someone could read your mind, how would you feel if you knew someone could read your mind? You would not be comfortable with that. The things that we think, the things that I think, I wouldn't want people to know the things that I think.
But Taiwo, honestly, I totally see African mothers doing this. It's something that I would see. I don't know about all mothers, but I can certainly see African mothers reading over and over and over again. I can't see them even thinking that these are your private thoughts. These are, because I think African mothers think that their daughters are an extension of them. So therefore, whatever you're thinking or doing, I have a right to know. But so I don't think the grandmother in this case would have even thought that it was anything to be worried about, but her need to know so she can train this child in the ways of the Lord.
But why doesn't she speak to her about it? If she's so worried about it all and she reads it once, okay, you could just put it away and say it's private, I shouldn't have looked at it. But if you keep going back to it and it's worrying you, why doesn't she talk about it with, I found this disgusting book under your bed. What on earth?
Because like Jackie said, Jael actually needs therapy. Because if you look at her, if you just read what they've talked about, she goes to church, she comes across as sweet, lovely, quiet. But obviously beneath that surface, the devil is at work. The church would say. How do you approach a child who seems seemingly sweet and nice and lovely? There's such a disconnect. She needs therapy. That's what she does.
But also, how is she going to react? If you go to her and say, I found your diary and I've been reading it, how is she going to react? She's already distant. The great-grandmother already feels that she doesn't tell her anything. So if you now go to her and say, by the way, I've been reading your diaries, I know what you're up to, I know what you think, how is she going to react?
Obviously with anger.
She might burn the great-grandmother's house down.
Yeah. I don't know. You can't read her.
Yeah, she's not an arsonist though, is she?
I think the only solution I can see is that she gets a new name. Because obviously this name is underneath it all, isn't it? They didn't read that story properly. And
it's too late, Katrina. It's too late. It's too late. She can't just become... It was good. Ruth? Esther? It's too late. It's too late.
I'm not even familiar with this Song of Deborah. It's not in the Bible, is it?
What Song of Deborah?
This is how it ends, Song of Deborah in Judges. No. I've never read that in the Bible.
No, I'm not familiar with it either. Anyway, I'm in the interest of time, because I know Katrina's got to run. Coming on to the last story in the first edition of the book, when Eddie Lavert comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so why do you think it's very important for daughter that her mother knows who she is?
Is it because daughter is never recognized? She's totally unappreciated. The fact that she's taken on all the caring responsibilities is kind of like the mother, and also she's the one that was abused more than, well, she was abused, wasn't she, by her mother, when her mother still remembered who daughter was.
Mm.
And then there's a whole colorism lens as well, isn't there? Daughter's a dark one, with the boys, mum got it right and they were lighter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think daughter's trying to heal, and she wants the recognition of the pain that's been unnecessarily inflicted on her by mother to be acknowledged, but mother either won't or can't acknowledge it, which is why the sometimes twice divorced kind of friend with benefits was saying, look, you need to find a way to heal yourself.
Yeah.
Mm.
You're not going to get the healing from outside. It has to come from within.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also about forgiveness. The story is also about forgiveness, because I think she's, despite what her mother's put her through, she's still the one that's looking after her mother. She's still the one that is there for her, doing everything for her, despite the fact that the brother is still around. So I think it's also about forgiveness.
Mm.
And what do you think it says about, the story itself says about forgiveness? And, well, daughters and mothers and...
The only problem is that, I think she's trying to forgive her mom, but she's still sitting in that pain. That's the problem. She's still in the pain. And
but isn't that part of the reason as to why she wants the recognition? She wants her mother to recognize what she's done.
Yes, but I'm saying she'll continue to sit in that pain, because even when she thinks her mother has a flicker of recognition, then the mother switches fairly quickly to, he's coming today.
Mm-hmm.
So I think her lover is right in that she will have to find it within herself to heal and to move on, because if she's wanting her mother to recognize what she's done, she's going to continue to sit in that pain.
And her mother's only going to get worse. It'll come to a point when she might not even remember Eddie Levert. And then you're going to be even more frustrated because she won't recognize anyone or acknowledge anything that's going on. And then you'll just forever be frustrated. But that's not her mother's fault. Mother's not well, but it'll get to a point where she gets even worse. So she does need to heal, or she needs to do something within, because her mother will get worse, and then that'll be it. There's nothing you can really do.
So is it then that she, well, not necessarily even needs to forgive herself, but she just needs to accept that her mother's done whatever it is her mother's done, and she just needs to let it go, let the past be the past, and then just move on with her life?
Yeah, because I think in some ways it would be easier, not easy, but it would be easier if she could get the recognition from her mother. It's like getting that, getting the healing from the source of what's the opposite of healing? The abuse.
Uh-huh.
But the harder road to tread, or the harder path to go down, is to get that healing from a third party, from a different source, not the source of the abuse.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's saying to her. That's what the guy is saying. You're going to have to go down the even harder path. Because when you think about it, in some ways, to forgive someone for doing something that you didn't deserve is irrational. But you're doing it really because it benefits you, even if it doesn't benefit the person that caused the hurt.
So yeah, I think we just go around, I guess, summarizing. And it would be interesting to know if anybody's changed their view about the book as a whole, or whether overall your view is pretty much still the same as it was when we started discussing. So I'll go from top to bottom. So David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I have changed my view. So I thought it was a quiet read. I liked it the first time around, but just reflecting a bit on the stories and hearing discussions, it's kind of made me think a lot. So yeah, I've really come to appreciate it more. Yeah, but I think it's so much depth in it when I think about it, and there's a lot of themes through it as well that I hadn't really maybe seen the first time around.
Okay, thank you, David. And Yvonne?
Yeah, I still love it, like I said from the start, but now I have clarity on my favorite story, which is How to Make Love to a Physician.
What?
Yes, that is actually my favorite story.
Eula.
No. How to Make Love.
I like Eula, but I like this one more, if that's okay. As I say, I liked all of them, but now the more we talked about that particular story, the more I just see how beautiful it is and how therapeutic, everything. I love it. I loved all the stories, bar Instructions of a Married Christian.
Well, I changed my view in the sense that I did sort of get more out of the stories by listening to everybody talking about them and that. But I still, they're kind of nice stories, but none of them really grab me particularly. And I think, sorry. Sorry for that. I think what you said at the beginning, Jackie, when you were saying maybe they were too short, I think maybe that's part of the trouble. There's just not enough information in some of them about the different characters to really make judgments. But I'm not a great one for short stories anyway, so that's all. I wouldn't not recommend it, but I'm a bit neutral on it, really.
Okay, thank you. And Annette?
I don't know why, because I think I gave it 4.5 stars, but now I'm giving it a 4, and I don't know what you've all done. I know, Taiwo, I'm sorry.
How dare you, Annette?
I don't know what's happened. I don't know, maybe I've overthought some of it too much, and there's a few holes in it a little bit. I still really enjoy it, but maybe not as much as, I don't know. Maybe I thought it a bit too much. But I think, maybe some of the areas where I couldn't see that connection with the church and what the idea of a church lady is and all of that. But I still very enjoyed it. But I think maybe just some of the stories I can't say were directly kind of linked to the actual title of the book, but they're still very good stories as they are. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 4 stars. And I would recommend it.
Thank you. And Taiwo?
I would highly recommend it. I maintain my 4.5. I have to add the fact that I was blown away by the connection between Peach Cobbler and Instructions for Married Christian Husbands. I didn't see the connection until I attended the book club, and I was just totally blown away by the fact that there was that connection, and I hadn't made the connection. But I do love particularly the first 2 stories, the fact that it packed in so much in such a short space. I felt that was really, she really showed that she's a master of her craft. So 4.5, a strong 4.5.
You sure you don't want to go 4.75?
No.
I'm still on the fence. Neither hated it, neither loved it. I thought it was okay. I don't know. There's something about them that just like, I didn't see the greatness that everybody else saw. I just thought that, yes, she's a good writer. She's, writing short stories is not easy. And she's done a good job with these stories. I like the issues that she's explored. But I just feel like, okay, fine, she's done it and she's done it well, but it's not great.
That's Jackie, exactly. I can't put my finger on it either, but I read them and they didn't make me really concentrate and think about them. I've thought a lot more about them from listening to all you guys. And Taiwo, I never made that connection either. And it is interesting. It is much better. I do enjoy them a bit more from listening to you all, but I'm still not all that.
Yeah. So overall, I am 3 out of 5. I would give it. I can see shock on Yvonne's face.
It's missing that X factor for you and Katrina, isn't it, Jackie? It's missing that X factor.
It's 4 for me.
It is. And so thank you so much. And it was a wonderful discussion. And I shall speak to you guys again soon. And thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this or any of our other episodes, please like, share or subscribe on Spotify, YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Till next time, goodbye.